So we'll continue with this analysis of Summit Point. This is the actual plan submitted to the City of Brentwood for approvals. But in this plan, there are no hard numbers other than the minimum dimensions, and this plan could have been drawn in 1940, not just 1920, 2017. So, same standard, same look, a little bit more color from the CAD system, a little bit more consistency, but it is no different than a plan that would have been submitted 50, 60, 70 years ago. So it's time to think differently. And this is what we're going to teach you because the industry doesn't change, and this is exactly the work that you would be putting out as a student in this industry because nothing changes. And the technology that is used out there wouldn't change. So this is all about having you be proactive to change the industry in a grassroots movement using the LandMentor system. So first of all, we take and we accurately bring this in the background so we could run some numbers. And again, the only numbers that could be exact is if we start with land surveying information, but we didn't have that data because it wasn't provided to the city, so we have to deal with what we got. But from this information, we discover there's 3,912 linear feet the length of street and alleys. That's public infrastructure. But that doesn't mean anything. It's the volume of infrastructure. So what we can do with the LandMentor technology that would be very difficult to do with a GIS or a CAD technology is we start building data that is spatial, because we live in a world of surfaces. Our ground is a surface, any man-made surfaces, natural surfaces. We're in the business of surfaces. So the surfaces that we're looking at first is the surfaces that are pavement surface, our sidewalk surface, our public street. Those are man-made surfaces that are going on the site, and it's essentially what we're approving. If we add in some driveway surfaces, those are the paved hard surfaces. That's 2,821 square foot per lot. Our buildings are only 1,840 square foot average. So that what this means, this number is we're able to start analysis of the site from a surface perspective. And that is a first in the land development business. This is what LandMentor helps you create with almost no effort, very little effort. So once you learn how to use the system, this will be very easy for you. So anyhow, we have 153% ratio of footprint to paved surface. That means for every square foot or square meter of home, you are building a 1.5 square foot or square meters of pavement. That is out of whack. In other words, the developer thinks, hey, look at all the density. There's no space for anybody, so I must have the density. What happened is, as you'll learn, there is no space because we are way over paving the site because it is a bad design. But no one recognizes it because no one recognizes waste. So that's why the 153% is important. So with this technology, we could go virtually instantly from 2D to 3D. So we could start not only charting this data instantly, but we could start explaining to the public and the developer who submitted the plan why that's bad. So when we look at this site or this and then the streets from an analysis standpoint, we could see that 31% of the site is being consumed by street right-of-way. In other words, the developer who bought that land in Brentwood, California at incredibly high prices, because that's where very wealthy people live, it just gave 31% of his land back to the city. That's an expensive thing to do. He doesn't realize this, by the way, because if he did, things would change. So that's given back to the city. So when we look at it from a street analysis standpoint, about half the street is in the form of waste. Why that's important should be pretty obvious to you by now, but if you look at it from a number standpoint, that's about a quarter mile of street that is a maintenance headache to the city forever. But why is it important to the developer who's submitting the plan? Well, in Brentwood, it's going to be about $1,000 or more for every foot of street. So that means it's at least $1 million in excess construction costs, which adds $12,000 to each of the 84 homes. That's passed on to the first home buyer and each subsequent buyer thereafter, forever. Now, when you add interest on the mortgage the homeowner pays, they're paying a multiple of that, and if they actually stayed in their home for the 30-year mortgage, they'd be paying over $30,000 each home for this waste. That's why it's important. Now, the developer, probably the first time they realize all of this analysis from the city reporting back to the planning commission and council, the city being you guys, you students, using LandMentor and what you have learned to report this back to the developer, he's going to think, wait a second. Why didn't the consultants tell me I'm throwing away $1 million? He's going to go back to the consultant and says, hey, you didn't give me such a good plan. You better redo it. Or maybe he'll be in a time constraint and then build this monstrosity. But he or she could decide to move forward with the existing plan or leave something that's a legacy by demanding from the consultant. Because guess what? That consultant's paycheck depends on the developer paying, not the city. So as a student, you are going to be working either for the city or government, or you're going to be on the private developer side, or occasionally for a little bit for both. Why not work for both of them simultaneously? Because we need to create a much more efficient world, and nobody's going to do it except for the people at the leadership role, which is what this system's going to allow you to be. So we get back to this comment in the regulation. Encourage attractive, stimulating surroundings that make Brentwood's residential areas enjoyable places to live. Now, how stimulating is this? How attractive is this? How enjoyable is this cookie-cutter place going to be? And if you take a look at a existing Brentwood streetscape, what we're showing you, and this is the actual builder's homes. We went to the builder's website and used SketchUp to quickly make these models, place them on the plan. This is LandMentor technology. So you're able to do something like this in about maybe 2 hours, but then people that are judging this can make a logical choice as to whether this proposal meets the intent of the regulations. Because it has to be attractive and stimulating. And if you think this is a unique situation, we just Google Earth, brand new Brentwood development. How stimulating do you think these places are going to be? So if your job as a student is to sit behind a desk at a city like this and create some regulation that cannot possibly provide what the purpose and intent is trying to accomplish, how rewarding is your career going to be? This system and the training that we're going to provide for you will allow you to actually make a difference. We will show you how to create better intents. There was no provision to separate vehicles and pedestrians. They just mix them together. There's no reward for developers to actually create something. LandMentor and its training includes ways to reward developers that go beyond the minimum. By developers, we mean the people they hire. Because developers, all they do is they sign the paycheck. To assure developments don't create energy increase. You'll learn about that. To promote their development that's going to maintain their desirability over time and doesn't become obsolete. That encourages a stroll over a drive. That creates a higher standard than surrounding communities. Because if you work for the city, you want your city to be successful. That will make you successful. Provide incentives for those that increase the value of the development. That will sustain itself as it ages. And provide a higher standard so you won't get submittals like the one you see, but ones that are already in a virtual format. So, lesson 3 would be creating a better intent. Every city has some form of character they want to have, whether it's good or bad character or as they exist. So the purpose should reflect what the city leaders and stakeholders desires, the image they want to reflect to the outside world. For example, we worked in Leeds, South Dakota. Very important to them, snowmobile trails. Don't think that would be important in the city of Miami. Very important to them. The city, not the consultant, should make the determination. You as a consultant have to influence and not be telling people how to think, but influence how to accomplish what they want. So, the concluding thoughts of these 3 lessons, there's 12 in this initial series. The regulatory process is flawed. That is the process you are learning in school. Software simply automates a flawed process. Software you are learning in school right now. Communications of the actual problems obviously are not sufficient. That's your future job. And you'll learn regulations are intentionally kept simplistic because the public has to interpret it. And the minimums-based system that is the world grows on does not reward better development. And you should get what it says, which is minimal development. So this is the first of this 12 lessons and why LandMentor is going to change your career and it will change your life.